I walked into the security room holding a client badge, and the monitor showed Maya in the 11th floor conference room with Colin. Lights dimmed, projector still running with my name on the first slide. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? She leaned across the table, passing him a document from her tote. The room camera panned automatically as she adjusted her jacket. Colin closed the blinds halfway, leaving a narrow beam of hallway light. The folder she handed over was blue, identical to the batch I'd printed that morning. I recognized the serial number on the corner tab. It belonged to a contract I'd just finalized. The security guard didn't notice the feed, busy scrolling his phone. I asked, "Are those live cameras?" He nodded, not looking up. I pointed at the screen. He said, "Yeah, real time. They loop after midnight." I took out my phone and photographed the monitor. Each frame captured her and Colin within the same timestamp block, my folder in plain view. The feed switched briefly to the elevator, showing them leaving together. Maya pressed the ground floor button, her hand brushing his. I saved the image and stepped back from the console. The hum of the servers covered the small sounds in the room. I asked, "Who archives these?" The guard said, "Everything's backed up to facilities. 30-day retention." I thanked him and left, keeping my tone neutral. In the hallway, I saw her name still listed on the digital meeting schedule. It showed after-hours client review. The booking used my project code. I photographed that screen as well. Downstairs, her car was parked in the reserved contractor section. Colin's sedan sat directly behind it. Both tags matched their assigned numbers. I took a wide shot of the lot. Evidence doesn't need context. It needs consistency. I returned my visitor badge to the reception desk and signed out. Outside, the streetlights reflected on the glass facade. From the sidewalk, I could still see the faint blue light of the projector flickering through the conference window. The blinds had reopened slightly. Two silhouettes stood near the table. I zoomed in once and captured the final image before the lights turned off completely. I didn't wait to see them exit. The building's main door locked automatically after 10. I walked to my car, opened the folder containing spare copies of the same contract, and confirmed one was missing. The sequence fit perfectly. Print, sign out, and disappearance, all verifiable through system logs. When I reached home, I uploaded every image to a private drive and organized them by floor, timestamp, and camera ID. I checked the metadata. Every photo showed accurate geolocation. I labeled the file Conference Observation. No speculation, no edits, just direct records. After verifying upload integrity, I created a summary note listing what was visible: document type, individuals present, time range, and camera references. The outline wasn't emotional or accusatory. It simply described what existed in plain sight. That night, she texted, "Still working on client prep. Might be late." I replied, "Understood." The message thread displayed below the timestamp of the final photo I'd taken. 2 records occupying the same minute, both verifiable. I screenshotted that as well. The more data aligned, the less interpretation mattered. I reviewed everything once, then closed my laptop. The building cameras had already spoken. I only needed to organize their language. The next morning, she mentioned another late session, without prompting. Her voice stayed even, her phrasing identical to the text from the night before. I said, "Do you want me to drop by with coffee?" She replied, "No, it's all internal today." I logged that exchange and opened my work calendar. Her project slot showed as off-site vendor consult. Colin's calendar, public to internal staff, listed the same location. The overlap was exact. I captured the page and saved it in a new folder labeled Schedule Sync. At the office, I accessed the print logs for the document set I'd produced. Each file carried an audit trail with user, device, and time of release. My account showed 3 completed jobs, but a 4th appeared 10 minutes later under her login. The print name matched my contract header exactly. I exported the audit entry and stored it beside the photo of her handing Colin the same file. Logs never exaggerate. They only report usage. Later, she sent a short message. "Grabbing dinner with the team." I replied, "Which place?" She wrote, "Just the usual spot near HQ." I opened my delivery app and checked local orders placed that evening under our shared account. Her last transaction listed Colin's address, not the restaurant. I screenshotted the order summary, time, and payment confirmation. The system had charged my stored card. Facts accumulate quietly when patterns repeat. At home, I checked her desktop folder synced to our shared cloud. One file stood out: Presentation Draft Final. The metadata showed it originated from my workstation, but last modified by her user profile. I compared the revision list. Same slides, same titles, minor layout changes, my initials removed from the footer. I exported both versions and highlighted the differences. She hadn't stolen words, only credit. That type of alteration always leaves a trace in digital history. The next day, I spoke with the building's facilities coordinator, a man named Peter Clay. I asked, "How long are internal camera archives stored?" He replied, 30 days, full rotation. I asked, "If an incident file is tagged, does it extend retention?" He said, "Yes, it locks for 6 months automatically." I handed him a written request labeled Access Verification. He didn't ask for details. The form itself triggered the lock. The footage I'd seen couldn't vanish now. It was secured under standard compliance. Maya's explanations began sounding identical. "We're under deadline. Colin's leading the review. It's all work." Each statement mirrored the previous one, down to punctuation. Repetition in language often mirrors repetition in behavior. I noted each phrase as data, not as dialogue. I matched her statements against badge logs retrieved from the facility portal. The records showed her last exit from the building coincided exactly with Colin's departure 3 consecutive nights. The timestamps aligned within seconds. That week, I began assembling a parallel log of communication. Every time she mentioned a meeting, I noted the declared purpose, location, and duration. I compared those to conference room bookings visible through the internal scheduler. Her name appeared beside Colin's for each private review. The rooms they used were always unlisted after hours and located in the same secured corridor where I'd seen them. I didn't confront her. Confrontation adds noise to clean data. Observation remains effective only while unnoticed. My objective was pattern confirmation, not confession. When the patterns complete themselves, denial becomes impossible even without words. By the end of that week, her schedule, communications, and access history all overlapped with his. What began as an isolated feed in a security room now existed as a verified sequence across multiple systems. Suspicion had shifted into certainty. The next stage required evidence assembly strong enough to withstand review by anyone, HR, legal, or internal audit, without emotional interpretation. I began consolidating every record into a structured format. My objective was clear documentation, not accusation. Each piece of evidence needed origin, verification, and relevance. I opened the security request confirmation from Peter Clay and marked it Active Retention. That ensured no footage could be deleted or overwritten. Next, I exported my own badge data from the company portal. It displayed normal working hours. Hers, by contrast, included repeated after-hour entries tied to the same restricted conference room. I downloaded both logs and merged them into a side-by-side chart. Patterns form more easily when visualized. I contacted the IT administrator for audit verification under standard project procedure. I requested the download history for presentation decks linked to my username. The report showed 2 remote logins under her profile within minutes of each other, one from the office, one from Colin's assigned laptop. I saved the CSV file and renamed it Unauthorized Access Instances. No speculation was necessary. Systems confirm actions more accurately than people can describe them. To validate the timing, I checked printer server logs again. Each document job carried embedded metadata. The one she printed under her credentials contained an internal watermark unique to my layout template. That watermark included a trace ID referencing the day's contract ID. It proved she had printed my document, not her own draft. I highlighted that ID and attached the screenshot to my growing archive. I revisited the footage request portal and used my incident number to open the retained video files. The system provided a preview grid: elevator, corridor, conference room. In the elevator feed, Maya and Colin appeared together at irregular intervals, matching her late-night entries. I extracted stills showing their ID badges, both clearly visible under the ceiling light. The conference feed confirmed document handling. She slid my folder across the table while the projector displayed a slide bearing my signature footer. These weren't assumptions. They were pixel-level facts. After assembling visual and digital evidence, I checked internal communication logs through shared channels. Our project group used a messaging app with read receipts. My document submission message had been marked read by Colin despite not being addressed to him. That indicated direct sharing from her account. I exported that thread and captured the message headers. Proof doesn't rely on confrontation. It relies on traceability. By the end of the day, I had compiled badge logs, CCTV stills, print audits, and cloud revisions, all aligned in a linear sequence. I created a master document called Sequence Verification. Each entry contained 3 fields: source, observation, and confirmation. For example, source, security feed 11F, observation, document handover, confirmation, slide ID matches print watermark. The report read like an internal compliance checklist rather than a personal narrative. I reviewed everything once more before encrypting the folder. The evidence formed a complete story told entirely through systems. There were no subjective statements, only proof generated automatically by devices designed for accountability. Every file reinforced the others. She hadn't simply violated trust, she had breached data protocols traceable through institutional infrastructure. That detail made this situation larger than personal betrayal. It became a procedural breach subject to corporate compliance. The next step would determine the tone of resolution. Confrontation would waste documentation, escalation would use it correctly. I decided to let the system handle exposure instead of my words. Revenge, in this case, would be executed by the same cameras and logs that had revealed the truth in the first place. If this were you, would you act or wait? The following Monday, I scheduled a compliance review under a neutral subject line: Project File Audit Request. The meeting invitation included our department head, the security manager, and Colin's name as the listed project contact. I added Maya as supporting staff, ensuring her attendance appeared procedural, not personal. My folder of evidence sat ready on a flash drive labeled Verification Packet. Everything in it followed policy: footage, logs, and revision trails, each file accompanied by its source ID. Facts don't require interpretation when formatted correctly. When the meeting began, I plugged the drive into the display screen. The first slide opened to a timeline showing badge logs and print metadata. I said, "This review demonstrates document origin and transfer pathways." The head of compliance nodded, expecting a technical audit. The next slide showed the conference feed, still images of Maya handing the contract folder to Colin under low lighting. Their ID badges were visible. I added, "This footage aligns with unauthorized file downloads noted under separate credentials." Silence replaced the expected questions. Colin looked toward the table, then said, "That file belongs to our shared project." I replied, "The header shows my watermark." The compliance manager zoomed in. The trace ID was visible at the bottom corner, identical to the audit print report. Maya didn't speak. The screen advanced automatically to the printer log slide. The timestamp matched the footage perfectly. Each image and data point confirmed the previous one. The presentation ran like a self-auditing system. The compliance officer, Mr. Ellis, adjusted his glasses and said, "This will need to be escalated." He asked, "Was there external sharing?" I answered, "Not confirmed yet, but internal movement is verified." He replied, "That's sufficient for protocol." He requested the digital copy and transferred it to a secure drive. Colin opened his mouth as if to argue, then stopped when Ellis added, "Please refrain from comment until review concludes." Maya looked at me once, expression controlled. She said, "You planned this?" I answered, "No, the system recorded it." That was the truth. Cameras and logs had executed their function without my direction. All I'd done was observe their output and align it logically. Ellis closed the folder and said, "Both of you will receive interview notices." The meeting ended with no further dialogue. Later that day, I received an acknowledgement email confirming receipt of the verification packet. The message came from the compliance division and included a case number. The subject line read, "Active internal review, access irregularities." That phrase carried weight. Once an access irregularity file opened, HR, IT, and legal automatically synchronized investigation procedures. None of them required my follow-up. I had initiated a process that would continue autonomously. At home, I reviewed the chain of evidence again, ensuring nothing depended on personal testimony. Every action was recorded by authorized systems: camera feeds, printer audits, badge logs, and file hashes. The truth existed independently of my narrative. I could step aside, and it would still unfold identically. 2 days later, her badge access failed at the entrance gate. Security logs marked it as temporarily suspended pending review. The same day, Colin's access card was flagged for dual-use violation. Their absence from the office required no explanation. The compliance department doesn't discuss open cases. It processes them silently until conclusion. That night, I opened the message history one last time. The final unread text from her said, "We should talk about what you think you saw." The cameras had already answered that question without words. The truth was no longer a theory. It was an evidence trail stored across the multiple servers under active preservation. The compliance case advanced quickly once both access cards were suspended. I received an email from legal requesting supporting documentation for systemic breach correlation. That meant they were moving toward disciplinary action. My goal shifted from observation to control of the outcome. The evidence was already secure, but I wanted to ensure the process unfolded exactly as designed, calmly, procedurally, and without interference. Revenge would occur through structure, not confrontation. I opened a blank document labeled Chain of Custody Summary. It listed every verified source of data: badge logs, CCTV archives, printer spools, email headers, and the access record from my project folder. Each line referenced the official case ID so no one could claim duplication or misfile. I formatted the report according to internal compliance standards, using neutral phrasing like "item submitted for verification." Precision removes argument. Ambiguity invites excuses. Next, I prepared a decoy presentation labeled Project Update, Final Review. It looked identical to the previous client deck, but contained a subtle watermark reading Unauthorized Copy. I stored the file in the shared drive under her old access directory. The network's internal crawler still indexed inactive folders for 48 hours before removal. My intent wasn't sabotage, it was verification. If anyone attempted to retrieve that deck, the system would log the request under their residual credentials. That access event would generate an automatic alert tied to the open compliance case. Proof of tampering would complete the loop. I sent a short, factual email to the compliance officer. Attached summary consolidates audit sequence with verified timestamps for consistency check. No tone, no subtext. The goal was to align my documentation with theirs, ensuring any cross-reference pointed back to the same controlled folder. Once that link existed, the entire record became self-reinforcing. The truth required no maintenance. For personal security, I backed up the entire archive to a separate encrypted drive. One copy went to my personal cloud under an alias folder named Policy Reference. The other stayed offline. Both included the checksum file I'd generated weeks earlier. Authenticity can't be questioned when verified by matching hashes. In parallel, I reviewed the employee handbook. Clause 6.4 defined disciplinary grounds for inappropriate use of company resources and unauthorized disclosure of proprietary information. Both applied directly to Maya and Colin's documented actions. The wording guaranteed termination with forfeiture of bonuses. I highlighted those lines in my copy of the handbook and bookmarked them for later. A week later, HR circulated an anonymous feedback survey asking employees about workplace ethics and integrity. I completed it, selecting "Strongly agree" for confidence in compliance handling. Systems thrive on reinforcement. Acknowledgement strengthens accountability. My feedback ensured the process remained visible without appearing personal. The revenge plan required no communication between us. I ignored her texts and blocked her access to shared accounts. No confrontation, no conversation. Data would handle everything. The less emotion involved, the faster procedure runs. Once the internal investigation reached the evidence correlation stage, I submitted the final chain of custody document. That action triggered an audit lock, preventing alteration or removal of files. The review board could now proceed to disciplinary hearings without needing further confirmation from me. Revenge, once complete, looks like paperwork. Signed, sealed, irreversible. All that remained was to let the system act on its own logic. I had built the process. Now it would deliver the result. The compliance office scheduled their disciplinary hearing for the following week. Attendance was restricted to involved personnel only. I wasn't required to speak. My documentation already existed in the official record. The process moved forward automatically, every department handling its own segment. Security verifying footage, IT confirming access anomalies, HR preparing contract clauses for violation notice. Revenge no longer required participation. It functioned through policy. The decoy file I'd planted in her inactive folder triggered a new system alert. The report appeared in my inbox automatically, because my name was still linked to the original project. The timestamp showed that Colin's laptop attempted to open the document remotely. The internal tracker logged his machine ID and IP address. That single event created a new breach layer: post-suspension access. I forwarded the report to compliance with a 2-line message. Automated alert generated under prior credentials, for inclusion in case file. That was all the input required. 2 days later, I received a summary email titled, "Case Update, Final Correlation Achieved." It confirmed that both employees had engaged in unauthorized activity using company resources. Termination paperwork was initiated under clauses 6.4a and 6.4b. The report also noted intimate conduct in restricted zones as an additional violation of building policy. That phrase indicated the footage I'd submitted had been verified against internal regulations. The system had concluded the case exactly as intended. At work, access control logs displayed their badge IDs as inactive. Their email addresses redirected to an administrative notice. Colleagues spoke quietly about the investigation, but no one asked direct questions. Official communication labeled it breach containment. The phrasing sounded clinical, detached, the same tone I had used from the beginning. Process absorbs emotion when written correctly. HR scheduled a follow-up meeting to finalize documentation ownership. The department head handed me a letter confirming reinstatement of authorship rights for all files associated with the compromised project. My signature reinstated control over every presentation, contract, and deliverable affected. I scanned the letter, stored it in my archive, and marked the case folder resolved. The outcome aligned with compliance terminology: closure through verification. That evening, she sent one last message from her personal account. It read, "I never thought you'd go this far." I didn't reply. The distance between cause and consequence had already been measured and executed. Her account showed read once, then disappeared from the chat list. Data doesn't linger the way words do. The following morning, security distributed an internal memo about enhanced monitoring of restricted areas. The memo included updated policies referencing footage retention and audit rights. My case had become the training example for future prevention. Systems evolve through documented mistakes. That was the final form of consequence. I left work on schedule, locked my drive, and returned the borrowed company laptop. When I reached home, I deleted the secondary backup folder. The remaining copy on my external drive stayed sealed, encrypted, and archived. No need to revisit the evidence. It had served its function. The revenge was complete, but it didn't feel like an ending. It felt procedural, like closing a file at the end of a shift. Cameras, logs, and access systems had spoken in my place, delivering precision no confrontation could match. Would you call this revenge or justice? The official termination notice circulated internally without names, but everyone recognized the identifiers. 2 senior employees dismissed under Policy 6.4, breach of confidentiality and conduct. The office atmosphere changed immediately. Conversations quieted when compliance staff entered rooms. Project folders were audited, and new access controls required dual approval. No one mentioned Maya or Colin openly, yet their absence was obvious. Empty desks, disconnected phones, and erased profiles on internal chat. Their names vanished from team directories within days, leaving clean white gaps where titles used to be. My supervisor called me into his office for a short meeting. He said, "Compliance praised your accuracy. They want your process as a model for incident documentation." I nodded. He continued, You'll oversee procedural reviews next quarter. The promotion came quietly, written in an email the next morning. No fanfare, just confirmation of position change. Revenge had turned into professional advancement, executed by systems that valued precision over emotion. Outside of work, she sent no further messages. I assumed she'd left the city. HR mentioned that both ex-employees forfeited their severance due to clause violations. Her company-issued laptop and phone were collected by security. For me, the aftermath consisted only of archived copies of acknowledgement forms and signed documents. Proof completed its loop, transforming betrayal into verified resolution. Colleagues avoided discussing details, but indirect signs remained. A compliance bulletin appeared on the intranet with anonymized case notes referencing unauthorized activity in secured zones and shared access between personal affiliates. The example screenshots displayed blurred figures and redacted names, yet I recognized the shapes and layout from my own evidence file. That document turned into company training material for preventing misconduct. Revenge had evolved into institutional memory. I adjusted quickly to routine, my days filled with standard reports and policy updates. The data-driven workflow left no room for reflection. Every action I took aligned with regulation. Systems don't require emotion to maintain order. They require precision, and precision had become habit. In quiet moments, I opened the resolved folder once or twice to confirm its contents remained intact. Each time, the files looked the same. Verified, final, unaltered. There was comfort in that consistency. Friends from other departments occasionally reached out with subtle comments. One wrote, "You handled it cleanly." Another said, "No one could have done it better." I answered both messages with thanks. Short, neutral acknowledgement. Anything more would have implied feeling, and feeling wasn't part of the structure. The office moved forward. New hires filled their positions. New projects replaced the old ones. The hallway outside the conference room where it started was repainted, the cameras repositioned. No one remembered the original event, except through procedure checklists. That's how systems erase history, by rewriting it into training modules. At home, I organized personal records the same way I handled evidence. Bills, receipts, and passwords stored under encrypted tags. Efficiency replaced emotion in daily decisions. Betrayal had taught one lasting rule: documentation prevents repetition. When I walked through the lobby at work weeks later, the security guard who first showed me the footage nodded once. "New cameras are in," he said. I replied, "Good." He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer any. We both understood systems don't forget. They adapt. Months passed, and the company's structure adjusted around the gap left behind. My new position involved reviewing audit frameworks, ensuring data access stayed within defined parameters. Every report I submitted followed the same method that had exposed the affair. Quiet observation, verifiable sequence, neutral summary. Systems improved, and policy strengthened. What began as personal betrayal had evolved into corporate integrity reform. That was the full arc, not revenge, but correction through order. I no longer thought about Maya or Colin. Their names existed only in archived compliance cases stored somewhere under legal's retention library. Occasionally, an HR orientation slide referenced Case 6.4 as a model of precise evidence handling. The footage, the logs, and the printer records had become part of institutional learning material. They had turned an affair into an audit example. The irony wasn't lost on me, but it didn't require reflection. Systems convert chaos into instruction. That's how structure sustains itself. Outside work, life followed predictable patterns. Morning routines stayed unchanged, routes remained identical, and tasks occurred in sequence. I developed a habit of checking logs before finishing any project, verifying data like breathing. Precision replaced curiosity. Facts, once weaponized, became maintenance tools. When people rely on honesty, they risk uncertainty. When they rely on data, they gain control. That lesson stayed permanent. One evening, I received a new message from HR. It contained a draft for next quarter's compliance manual. The section I had indirectly inspired was titled Integrity by Design. It outlined how cross-system verification prevents misconduct, emphasizing observation over confrontation. Reading it felt like closing a file that had once been open too long. Revenge, processed through systems, had transitioned into preventive architecture. I archived the email beside my old case folder. Both belonged to the same timeline. One documenting violation, the other ensuring prevention. When evidence becomes procedure, justice becomes permanent. That realization removed the last trace of emotion connected to the event. There was nothing left to revisit. Occasionally, a memory surfaced. Not of her, but of the moment I first saw the monitor. The reflection of light, the stillness of the guard, the quiet certainty that the truth was visible, yet unspoken. That image reminded me why systems matter. People hide behind words. Cameras don't. Records don't argue, and logs don't forget. That neutrality is what delivers real closure. I never changed the label on the external drive. It still read, verification. Inside, every file remained encrypted, untouched. I didn't delete it. Deletion erases context, but storage preserves order. The act of keeping proof is not revenge, it's acknowledgement of reality. Some truths exist only to remind you how accuracy protects you. Now, when new employees ask how to handle irregularities, I give a simple answer. Observe, record, verify. Then let the system do the rest. They think it's a compliance rule, but it's also the lesson behind every betrayal. Evidence doesn't seek revenge. It just restores balance. Before leaving one evening, I looked once more at the office lobby monitor. The feed cycled through empty corridors, well lit and quiet. Cameras blinked in steady rhythm, the same as before. Systems remained awake, impartial, waiting for the next truth to reveal itself. What would you have done differently? Comment your opinion below. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more real stories.